As we broke on the show last night, Israel's ambassador to the UK, Tzipi Hotzveli, confirmed that Netanyahu's government does not want a two-state solution. Her suggestion was that there was no partner for peace with whom Israel could work, whether it was Hamas, a terror group, or the Palestinian Authority, who are in charge in the West Bank, but where Israeli settlers, egged on by Netanyahu, are killing people and taking properties. On that, further UK government pushback. The Foreign Secretary, Lord Cameron, has now banned from the UK those responsible for settler violence. He says extremist settlers, by targeting and killing Palestinian civilians, are undermining security and stability for both Israelis and Palestinians. Israel must take stronger action to stop settler violence and hold the perpetrators accountable. How can the two-state solution be revived? And is this not further proof that in order to get peace in that part of the world, Netanyahu, as well as Hamas, needs to go? Before we come to your calls, a word from Dr Francesca Albanese, UN Special Rapporteur on the Occupied Palestinian Territories, who is shocked by what the Israeli ambassador said.
I think that it's shocking, but not surprising. And it's not surprising because this is not the first time that Israeli senior political officials say that, and not later than, I think, 1 week ago, Netanyahu said the same, Prime Minister Netanyahu. It's shocking because it happens at a time where what else can the Palestinian aim for? And in the interview I saw, again, it's unclear to me what is proposed. And again, I don't think that the terms should be defined by what is Israel's will. In the sense, the Palestinians have a right to self-determination, and the right is very specific. It's the right to exist as a people, either, as international consensus says, in the form of an independent and sovereign state, or as full citizen of another state, which is Israel. So it's either or, tertium non datur in this case.
One of the things that she says, and one of the things that you hear Israeli politicians say is, particularly since October the 7th, who is that partner in peace that can help create a two-state solution?
I think that this is not the time to ask who's the partner for peace first. What should happen to get out of this impasse? And there is a way out, and the 31 or 32 special rapporteurs of the United Nations have suggested a few steps to get out of here. But the partner will be defined while there is the opportunity for the Palestinian people to express their will, which has not happened since 2000 nationally, since 2005. So I think what is needed is to end Israel's military occupation, and under a UN presence, as it has happened elsewhere in the world, there will be elections and the Palestinians have their own representatives. But again, there is something that is not up for negotiation, and it's the fact that the Palestinians have the right to be free as a people.
I understand. I also understand the point about the process of getting to the two-state solution. But just in reality, there's no way, is there, that in Israel, under the governance of anyone, including Netanyahu, but anyone else, can really form a two-state solution if Hamas is elected by the Palestinian people to run Palestine?
Look, many decades ago, it was the Palestinians warning the international community that the politics and the policies of subsequent Israeli governments were eroding the secular, non-religious basis in the Palestinian society. And this has happened. So this is the chronicle of an announced tragedy, which finds its first victims, in a way, among the Palestinians and the Palestinian secular leaders and the members of the society. But again, I don't think that this should be the prime consideration right now, because
but it has to be, doesn't it? Sorry, the political reality has to be a consideration about the statements made on both sides of a two-state solution. Clearly, there has to be a commitment from Israel to stop occupying certainly parts of the West Bank, but there also has to be a statement from the people on the other side of this to say our founding aim is not to eradicate Jewish people or the state of Israel.
Look, I think that this commitment has already been made by the PLO, which is so far the sole legitimate representative. It remains the sole legitimate representative of the Palestinian people. And while there is a democratic deficit in that respect, it doesn't have more authority than Hamas. And I agree with the fear that the Palestinian society might have radicalized, especially as of the 7th of October, because what has been done to them is also quite brutal. But again, the thing is that this is the result of decades of oppression. And if we don't put an end to it now, what will come might be even worse.
In what sense?
In what sense that Hamas wouldn't exist and wouldn't have been such a strong power in Gaza without decades of military occupation and within 16 years of blockade, where there was absolutely no possibility for political change, absolutely none, and this is fully documented.
Has Hamas control in Gaza made life better for Gazans?
I don't think so, but again, it's very difficult to separate what is attributable to Hamas and what is attributable to the blockade. Now, in the sense that
we know that the attack on October the 7th is definitely attributable to Hamas. I'm not saying that you did say that, by the way. I'm just making that point. And in that reality, when you talk about the Palestinian Authority and their legitimacy, I'll come back to that question about who is that partner for a different political iteration of Israel. It can't be Hamas. It might be the Palestinian Authority, but it can't be Hamas, can it?
Look, I think that this is time to give the Palestinians a chance to lead themselves by their own leaders of choice. And not at the moment, there is no leader of choice. There have been no elections held at the national level, so who am I to speculate, or who are we to speculate on the results of the elections?
I'm not asking you to. I'm just merely, I think, trying to crystallize a political reality that if Hamas is elected in national elections by the Palestinian people, and Hamas states very clearly we want to do October the 7th again and again and again, there is no political will in Israel, of any politician in Israel, to accept that that is the reality that they've got to work with. They can't.
No, but again, I fully support this. I think that would be having those leaders in particular, because the thing is that there have been also conflicting messages from Hamas's leadadship. And I totally appreciate, while there cannot be leaders running for elections who have been advocating for the extermination of Israel. I fully understand that, but this can be avoided. And the international community has to be the guarantor of this process, as it was done before. The previous elections happened under the supervision and the monitoring of the international community. So Hamas was not the dangerous force that it is today, and it has changed over time. And in certain respects, it has moved in certain position. In others, it has further radicalized. Clearly, otherwise, we couldn't explain the 7th of October.
Can I come to what you've said about Israel's response to the 7th of October? You've said Israel cannot claim the right of self-defense against a threat that emanates from a territory it occupies. In what way does Israel occupy Gaza?
Yes, I also want to clarify the issue of self-defense, because I understand there is a lot of confusion about that. But Israel does occupy the Gaza Strip. The Gaza Strip is still occupied under international law. And this is not because Dr Francesca Albanese says that, because every UN organization, and UN, even the Security Council and the General Assembly recognize that. Why so? Because there is occupation under international law, under the Hague Regulation, Article 42, when there is effective control by one state's military over another people's territory. And this effective control is maintained in in the Gaza Strip without boots on the ground, but by controlling the land, let's say borders, but it's not a border, the sea space, the air space, the electromagnetic space, the access to Gaza and the
so
exit from
yes.
Gaza.
Okay. So in a sense, it's...
and the population registry and everything.
So in a sense, it's control rather than occupy. In that sense, there's not a physical presence.
Occupation.
There's not a physical Israeli presence in Gaza, but there is certainly a control. You also say, just finally on this, you also say what Israel was allowed to do was to establish law and order, to repel the attack, neutralize whomever was carrying out the attacks, and then proceed with law and order measures. The people carrying out the attacks were Hamas. So has Israel got a right to neutralize that group?
Tom, but if you ask me a question, you also have to give me the time to respond. And I want to clarify the question of self-defense, because I never claimed that Israel didn't have the right to protect itself. But self-defense is the right to wage a war. And this right does not exist in international law, cannot be exercised against the people maintained under belligerent occupation. So once we establish that Gaza is under occupation, the measures should have been in line with international humanitarian law, which also prescribe the respect for the principle of distinction, proportionality and precaution that Israel has violated through and through. And now going to your next question. So first of all, we have to say that again, Hamas would have not become the danger it is also to the Israelis as well as the Palestinians, hadn't it been for the blockade that Israel has maintained. And again, I want to repeat as
well, the counterfactual was difficult, but carry on. Yep.
Look, when you interview, if you do members of the Israeli government, you should ask to clarify what they meant by Hamas is an asset to the to Israel and the Palestinian Authority is a liability, because this is part of the problem. They saw Hamas as the perfect representative, quote unquote, of the Palestinian people, with whom no member of the international community would have ever engaged. And so it was so convenient to avoid the question of the two-state solution.
I understand that. Can I just get you to answer the question about the ability to neutralize whomever was carrying out the attacks? That is Hamas. Israel has a right, it has a manner in which it needs to do it that is within international law, of course, but it has a right to be able to get rid of Hamas militarily.
Yes.
That is Dr Francesca Albanese, UN Special Rapporteur on the Occupied Palestinian Territories. If a two-state solution is to exist, who is Israel meant to work with?